All right, welcome to today's Tikit Training Tuesdays, which is a part two of last week. So for those who were with us last week will know that I was a little bit ambitious, didn't get everything covered, was a bit rushed as well at the end, and it made a lot of sense to rejiggle our schedule, do a part two on this one, and finish it properly. So I've put the same shirt on. Um, I've tried to make myself look as similar as possible. I can't remember if I wore my glasses last time or not, so could be a slight continuity error. Um, and then, yeah, this will be the nice part two. If you were not here a week ago and you didn't see part one, then that's not a problem. Stay with us because we're going to do a lot of recap anyway. As I say, I was a bit rushed last time. And you can always go back and check out the part one video afterwards. All right, I'm going to whiz through my handful of slides and we'll get straight kind of into it really. So, yes, Ticket Training Tuesday. We're here every week. Although we are rattling through time and we're already halfway through this second season of Ticket Training Tuesday. And maybe a colleague of mine could drop in the links, all the previous sessions and recordings in the chat. That'd be really appreciated. Today, yes, welcome. I've already done welcome, but again, welcome everybody. Housekeeping. The session's recorded and available on YouTube. Afterwards, we're going to do a quick recap of last time, get straight into the demo, and then we will have time. Last time we ran out of time for questions, really, so we will hopefully have some time for questions today. For those that don't know me, I'm Jeff. I'm a lover of brightly colored t-shirts. Stay tuned for future episodes of Ticket Training Tuesday because I've got some great ones coming up. And yeah, I also quite like IT service management. So there you go. I had this slide last time as my only kind of slide. And once again, it is just a reminder really to resettle ourselves. We talked about automating tickets using Power Automate and Power Automate tasks. And I said there was kind of two everything was into two things, one of two ways. You've got automating the flow of the ticket. That's where we focused last time. That's controlling actually how the ticket goes, the steps required, managing that ticket life cycle dynamically, potentially. And then secondly, where we're going to focus today, automating the fulfillment of the ticket, actually doing the work that's been requested via automation. All right, so without further ado, let's get into demo. So this, I think, is exactly where we left off last week. So we had just created half this process and then we created a test ticket to test it so far. So we, just to remind everybody, we've got a add user to team process to request to add somebody to a Microsoft team. We have a 3-phase life cycle. We built this out in the life cycle and attached to the template. The first phase is just to set up the approval and just contains one Power Automate task. And that's what we built last time. We'll have a look at that in a second as a reminder. Then we've got our approval phase itself. This is where this ticket got left because this first Power Automate task actually set Melissa as the approver there dynamically based on the fact that the request was to add into the office management team, and Melissa is the designated approver for that particular team. So dynamically put her in versus somebody else for the different teams. And then the final phase, we didn't even get onto it because we need to complete this approval to get there, of course, is that a second flow will run a second Power Automate flow. And this will actually add these to the team. That's the fulfillment. That's going to do the work for us. Why automate that? Well, many reasons. but access is one, right? I don't need to give my agents further access into M365 or whatever admin tool is required, for different scenarios. The automation is doing that for them. Consistency, we know it's been done correctly, following the correct steps, however that is for that particular task, because it's done by the automation every single time. It'll be done in the way we want every single time. There's no human error. And I guess the third one, which is probably the most important, or at least where our users care the most, because they don't think about those other two necessarily, is speed, right? This can happen in seconds or milliseconds, really. And even the best of agents, and I know there's many amongst us on this call, take more than a few seconds to do some of these tasks. So great speed, which means obviously for our business users, they get what they need very quickly and don't have to wait on anybody else. All right, so this is the flow. So that first flow, the setup approval, that's what we built last time. This is it here. So we're triggering on when a Power Automate task becomes active, i.e. when we get to that point in the life cycle and not before. Then we grab the ticket, we pass the JSON of the answers, we looked up to get the approval object, we use a switch, which I think I heard from a few people was the sort of first time they'd seen a switch being used. So it's just another way of being dynamic. I could have used conditions, but when you've got multiple different things, a switch can be more efficient. And then depending on if it was office management or HR, we actually updated the approval. And the template is blank. We update it with the correct approver, and then we completed the PA task. So that's what we built last time. I'm going to go now and build our second flow for the fulfillment. Actually, because the first really four things are identical, I'm going to go back and save as. I hope. Let's give it the old therapeutic refresh. Great. Well, isn't this fun? Oh, here it comes. Just taking its time. So we're going to call it add user team fulfillment. Just to go on naming convention, spell it correctly, and we're off. Let's go and find it. Here it is. It is off by default. I'm going to go and turn it on now before I forget. And as I say, I only wanted the first four. I thought this would be quicker. I think I'm still right. So I'm going to go in now and delete that. In fact, I want that on the end as well. So that last one can stay because we still want to complete the set the status of the PA task to completed. Jeremy says it's a really important point, so we'll cover this again. You need to control the status of your Power Automate tasks yourself. Tikit will not do that for you. It's so that you can build in your own error handling, and you're likely to end with succeeded, but you may have a path in your flow that leads to the task being set as failed. And therefore you can build your transition logic onwards from there. So you do need to control that yourself, so you can build in your own error handling. I like to set them to in progress at the start and then complete or succeeded at the end. This is a nice to have because the whole thing runs so fast you generally don't see it. But if it kind of gets jammed up in any way, then it will show as in progress, and it's a good indication of what's gone on. So it's a nice little thing to do. Okay, so in this, do we remember, and I'm actually slightly concerned there is no user set here. So I might go and just reset this. I can't remember who I chose. Let's pick good old Lillian. That is not saving my user. That's also a fun one. Let's see what we get as we go down the path here. So the reason I thought of that is because when you're using a user picker, you need to do a double pass of the JSON, because when it puts the output of that user picker, it's JSON within JSON. So the very first thing I need to do after that first pass JSON of the answer card answer is do another one for this user to add output, and because that's doubly needs double passing. So I do have a schema ready to go here. Again, you can generate this from an example payload if you need to, but the output of a people picker has the full name, the username, and the object ID, i.e. the entry ID GUID. And it's an array because a people picker, even though in this case I've got it configured for a single user, that's just at the UI, level. So it's still, from a data point of view, it's stored in an array. So you need to make sure you've got your schema structured accordingly. That will output my user. And in this case, those that were here 2 weeks ago, do you remember I did that sort of clever technique? Let's quickly remind everybody. In the form itself, for the select the team choice set, I set my choices like this. We're using this slightly, rarely used feature of a choice having a title and a value. So when the user filtered in, they see HR Office Management. On the ticket itself, I saw Office Management, but from a Power Automate point of view, I'm going to get these GUIDs. These are the actual Entra ID GUIDs for these groups. I did that because now I don't need to go and look it up. I'm just going to be given that GUID. So now here, I've got that GUID because that's what's going to come out of this team to add value. That's going to be the GUID of the dropdown. And now from out of this one, I've got the either the UPN or the GUID of the user object. So now all I need is the add member to a team. And you can see in this case, the user needs the UPN or the entry ID. I've got both, so I can pick whichever I prefer. I'm going to go for the username. And then for the team, this is where Power Automate's trying to be helpful. It's given me this sort of dynamic drop down of my teams. It's looking actually up in Microsoft Teams. Those are the four it's found. I want to be clever and use that kind of thing I've passed out. So I need to enter a custom value, which then drops me back to the standard controls with the function and the data. And then I can select it's the body team to add to. So say it's going to be that GUID that's coming out of that input choice set. I think the parameter is I can set as an owner. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to leave that off anyway. We once again jumped into for each, and that's because when we pulled in that username, do you remember me saying that that is actually comes out as an array? We know in our case it's only ever going to be one. You could do something different here to avoid the for each, but we know it's going to be one, so it's not particularly a problem to jump through that for each to flatten that array out and then process that once. And that should be good to go. Oh, I forgot to do one thing. Oh, I forgot to do two things. I forgot to, this double pass is on the output, as I said, of the user to add. So the content there is on the output of user to add from the first pass. The second thing I forgot to do, which would have been embarrassing, is change the trigger. So because I did a save as, it's still got the original one. So when you put this trigger in, the when a lifecycle PA task becomes active, you set the lifecycle, the phase and the PA task that it's tied to. And that's how you can be very specific about which bit of the life cycle you want to trigger on. You could even have multiple PA tasks in a single phase. So that's why we get to be granular here. So I want to be using the add user to team lifecycle, the fulfillment phase, and then the add user to a team fulfillment task. So these two, this one's already set. It's the fulfillment phase and the add user to a team fulfillment task. And there we go. Let's save that. Great. And that, and if we double check it did turn on. Yes, it did. I think that I'm going to say it's never been triggered, which is fine. Yeah, that's because it does save as, not a problem there. So that's the really nice thing about the sort of the configuration disconnect, but then you basically reconnect it between your life cycle and your Power Automate task. When you build your life cycle, you call that task whatever you want, and then you just link back to it in Power Automate. And they're not actually dependent, or at least the life cycle when you create it isn't dependent on the task already being there, which is why I'm going to carry on with the exact same ticket we created a week ago. Oh, that was a modified date. Where's the creation date? Doesn't show. This ticket which was the one still created a week ago. There we go. And I've finally now created this Power Automate task, and I still am confident it's going to link up and run because now it exists. Let's find out for sure. And the way that we get to this Power Automate task is by making this phase active. And the way we get that is by completing the previous phase, by approving this approval, which is currently set to Melissa. What I'm going to do is pick this demo, add myself, and then I can approve it just to keep us rolling here. So that's been approved. That should kick us onto the fulfillment phase. That should kick that PA task in. And it's going to maybe add a user to that team, but as I'm slightly concerned why there's no user showing here. I don't know if that's something I've done my end or what. Okay, fulfillment is now in progress. The flow has succeeded. Always positive. Let's refresh the run. It did something. Okay, so yeah, it triggered. It got the peer. It set the peer task to in progress. We never even saw that. It grabbed the whole ticket. It passed the first lot of JSON, and we can see here this how this double pass works. So the output. Sorry, here the output of the team to add to is that GUID we use in a minute. So that's great. The output of the user to add is still this extra JSON. And for some reason, it did grab the right user. Not sure why it's not showing in the UI, but it is all wired up properly. So that's why we need the second pass to then take that JSON, and then we can output, as we said, the full name, username, and object ID. That is still an array. You can see it's 0, 0, 0. It's in an array of objects. One object in the array, so this for each only ran once. It added the user to the team. There you go. Lillian was added to that team. It looks like it was successful. We'll go and have a look in a minute. And set the task to completed. So it all says it works. Let's see if it did. Just remind me, because I've forgotten, it was the office management team. So let's go and look at the office management team group, whatever you want to call it. And its members includes Lillian. Excellent. So that did its job perfectly. And if we go back for one more refresh on our ticket, you should find that it's been resolved. It has, because we finished the life cycle. The final phase was fully completed, everything in it was done, and that resolves the whole ticket for us. So in this example, we've got both those types of automation. In our very first phase, we're running a flow to automate the flow of the ticket. It's dynamically grabbing the relevant approver. In this case, it was based on what was picked and our determined, approvers for each value. It could be based on maybe some other business logic. It could be like, depending on what they select, if there's a kind of approval dollar value, that threshold that's passed, it goes to one person or the other. It could be based on who actually raised the ticket. In this case, it was raised by myself. The obvious example there is like a line manager scenario. So whoever raises it, it's their line manager approves it, or it's their line manager's line manager that approves it, or something based on who that person is. Or a combination of those factors could be based on who they are and the answer they provide. You could build any kind of level of complex business logic there to dynamically get the approver or approvers. Maybe you want to set up a multi-stage approval where first it was line manager and then it's somebody else based on the request that they've put in. So all that you could do within a Power Automate task to automate the flow of the ticket. Once it was approved, we then ran a second automation, a second Power Automate task. And this time is that second scenario to automate the fulfillment of the ticket. We added the user to the group. I, as an agent, did not need to go into Entra and do that. Nobody did. No one needed extra admin access. We know it was done correctly and wasn't by mistake checked to be an owner or something like that, which could happen by human error because that's been how it's been set up. And it happened very fast. So from a user point of view, requesting this thing, they do need to wait on approval, unfortunately. That's still the way the world works. But as soon as it was approved, bang, it was done within a couple of seconds. And they've got the access that they need. Okay, so I appreciate anybody who was here a week ago, who's come back today to see the second part of that demo. Thank you very much. Hopefully that was helpful. As I say, go back and look at part one if you missed that last week. That's on the link that's in the chat. And yeah, that sort of ends us, but I'm going to hang out here for any questions. Please feel free to come off mute if you want to ask, or pop it in the chat. That's fine. It's pretty informal. Okay, sounds like no questions today. That is also fine. In that case, I will say thank you very much for joining me today. We're back next week, as always. If you have any questions that you didn't think of and you want to ask afterwards, then as always, you can reach out to me or to help@sarajan.com and we'll get you the answers. All right, thank you everyone and see you soon.